Hello and welcome. My name is Michael Dennis. This is the Michael Dennis Show. I'm coming to you live from downtown Cincinnati, here at the Cincinnati Athletic Club, somewhere behind me, broadcasting today. I'm a UCF grad. I am a Sopranos superfan. I am a Cincinnati sports skeptic, although it has been increasingly difficult to be that as of late. Also, I'm going through the middle of a bit of a midlife crisis, but instead of going and getting a mistress or a Corvette, I'm starting a YouTube channel. So we'll see how this ends, or which one would end up costing me more in the long run. But today's a big day. It is Monday. We are coming off a gigantic weekend series the Reds have with the Atlanta Braves. The Reds end up losing 2 out of 3 after taking the game on Friday night in what Chris Welsh called what he called the single greatest home game at Great American Ballpark that he's ever seen. As I said yesterday, that might come across as a little too much, as a little hyperbole, but when you really sit down and think about it, there haven't been that many great games in the history of Great American Ballpark, or meaningful games for that matter. I made an entire other video on that. I hope you get a chance to check that out. I'll put the link in the description box below. But you're coming off a hometown series where you lost 2 out of 3 against the Braves. On Saturday night, I believe the final score was 7-6. Yesterday, something very similar. It might have been 7-6. I don't remember. It was just they did lose by 1. But the Braves are one of the best teams in the National League. Oh, if you hear any thuds, there's people lifting weights and throwing them down upstairs above me. Like I said, I'm not at home today. My wife works from home. almost said my mom, but I didn't want to record at my mom's house either. So I came here to get a little bit of privacy. That's really the one thing I use this Cincinnati Athletic Club for. I keep wanting to call it the Chicago Athletic Club because I used to belong there too. But I think I've been in the pool 2 or 3 times in my 6.5 months of membership here because I just come here to work. But enough of that. Let's get back to the Reds. The Reds lost 2 out of 3 against the Atlanta Braves over the weekend, the final 2 games in that series being lost by 1 run apiece. And I hesitate to call this weekend a moral victory, but that's kind of what I'm leaning towards here. There was a lot of question whether this streak could continue. What is this team going to look like against a real contender? Is this team going to step up and play well, or is it going to be something more akin to the Yankees series about a month or so ago, where the Yankees came into town and just steamrolled this entire team? And that really wasn't the case. They were in each game till the very end, bringing it down to the bottom of the 9th, Iglesias having to come in and close it out. Having been a Reds fan and having watched Raisel Iglesias for a number of years, I wasn't surprised at all that he made it interesting, that he gave up a couple of home runs and gave up some runs and almost gave up the game each time. That's kind of what he does. But this team had an opportunity to kind of prove itself, to prove that it belonged, and they really did. They really did prove that they belonged. What a fantastic showing by this club, by this franchise. Ellie De La Cruz once again had a really great weekend. We'll touch back on him in a second. But the one thing you can't say about this team is it doesn't feel legitimate. It doesn't look legitimate. The way the team plays, the way they move on the field, their speed, their bats, now their power. I don't understand how this Reds team had 0 power up until the middle of May, and now it has all the power in the world. I did 3 minor leaguers change all that? 3 minor leaguers and I guess Joey, who also had a fantastic weekend. That has really changed everything. But a really great showing by this franchise, a really great showing by this team. Positive vibes abound here in Cincinnati, and I think that's the one takeaway you have to have from this entire weekend. I read somewhere online this morning that this was the largest 3-game attendance in the history of Great American Ballpark, and that says a lot considering the fact that just about a month or 2 ago, they were setting attendance records for this being the least attended series of games in the history of Great American Ballpark. So talk about a real roller coaster ride in just a couple of months. We're only about halfway through June. No, wait a minute. We're at the end of June. The 4th is next weekend. We're at the end of June, which means the All-Star break is going to be right around the corner. If this team continues to play well, they almost have to make a move at the break and bring in some starting pitching. That continues to be, I think, their number one glaring weakness. My other concern would be that this team of young guys would simply run out of gas in the second half of the season, just not have anything left in the tank come September. But thanks to the call-ups, thanks to how this team is structured, thanks to the DH, thank God the DH is here. How much more interesting is baseball to have Joey Votto or an actual hitter bat 4 times a game than a pitcher? The DH watching pitchers hit sucks. I'm so glad it's gone. I'm so glad the shift is gone. The sport is better. It is a better product. But in the long run, you're worried about this team running out of gas, and I really feel that that's something they're structured well. They can rotate guys in and out. They can keep people on the bench. They can allow players to sit, and do DH, and also just sit and swap out somebody else. So in the long run, you might want to add another veteran bat of some kind at the All-Star break, but really your number one concern is going to be getting some starting pitching, or somebody to help shore up the bullpen. I've seen Chapman's name thrown out a bunch, but the problem right now is you have a lot of teams. There's only 3 or 4 teams in both leagues that aren't considered still in it, or that don't consider themselves to be in it, that are so far out of first or so far out of contention that their season is already wrapped up. I think we all thought the Reds were going to be one of those as well. But the price right now is going to be a bit too much for anybody on the market, and I think you really have to wait and see who gets shifted in and out of contention over the next 30 days, but also keeping your eye on the markets. Getting back to good vibes in the stadium and in this team, aside from the great attendance over the weekend, you had Ellie De La Cruz come out and hit for the first cycle since Eric Davis in 1989. I was mistaken. I thought the initial stat was he's the first rookie to hit for the cycle since Eric Davis, but in actuality, he's the first Red to hit for the cycle since Eric Davis. That blows my mind. Hold on, I had a stat I wanted to pull out. I can't find it right now. There was another stat that you just got a glimpse of the top shelf pre-production that goes into this broadcast on a daily basis. This broadcast is all about reps. I need reps. I need to do stuff like this every single day for the next 12 months. So I saw some other stat that talked about this is the first time blah, blah, blah has had like 4 extra base hits in a game. I think it was our new shortstop. First 4 extra hits in a game, 4 extra base hits in a game for a rookie since Chris Sabo. You combine that with the longest winning streak since the 1800s, and now you're selling out left and right. The vibes around this team are so incredibly good. It's a little scary. You're waiting for the next shoe to drop as a Cincinnati sports fan, but this might be something great. And let's just keep our fingers crossed, and let's keep enjoying it. Let's keep rooting on this team. I literally can't believe I'm sitting here championing this team. I went out and bought the FUBU television cable package just so that I could watch them all on a regular basis. I could watch every home game. And if you had told me just a couple of months ago that I would be going to these lengths to watch Reds baseball, paying for it, but also sitting down and committing myself to watching Reds baseball. Yesterday, I took the girls and the family to the museum center. The weather was kind of lousy, and I'm not going to spend $150 to go to a Cincinnati Reds game with the kids. That'll be a different topic for a different broadcast. But got home from the game. Girls kind of lounged around a little bit during the rest of the afternoon, and I had the game on my phone the entire time. I was listening to it and watching it when I was in the kitchen cooking lunch, cleaning up. We were outside in the yard playing. I had it just so I could keep an eye on the score in not an unsimilar fashion as you would the radio and 700 WLW back in the day. But this team kind of broke me. They broke me. I care. I can't believe I care about the Cincinnati Reds again. After last year and after the last couple of years, I really thought I was done. I was broken as a Bengals fan back in 2015 during the Jeremy Hill fumble. I went into that game feeling very good. I remember I'd been given an AJ Green jersey for Christmas that year. I had a buddy come into town in Chicago, and we went to a Bengals bar. and watch that game. And to watch the collapse of the Cincinnati Bengals in that day, it made me come to a realization that I was like, this team is never going to love me back. It's never going to get over the hump. And I completely wrote off the Cincinnati Bengals, and I didn't care for them anymore, but I did make sure to gamble against them over the next couple of years because they're always good for that. It wasn't until Joe Burrow returned and really proved it that's really brought me around, and that franchise has really changed course and is now really putting it together. And I'm not one of these people who sits here and talks about this franchise, the Bengals franchise, never being any good, because I think it gets lumped in with some of the worst franchises in the league, when in actuality they aren't. They made the playoffs a bunch in the aughts. They made it 5 times in a row in the 2010s. Look at them right now. They made a Super Bowl run and 2 straight AFC title games. The Cleveland Browns and their fans would trade for that record in an instant. The Arizona Cardinals are infinitely worse than any of those franchises as well. But they get a bad rap for always being crummy. When they haven't really been crummy, they just haven't gotten over the hump. And like I said, the Jeremy Hill fumble game caused me to leave the Cincinnati Bengals for a number of years. You're not leaving me, I'm leaving you. One of those scenarios. And I didn't come back till Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And perhaps the only reason I'm still here is because of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. But that's how I feel about the Cincinnati Reds. And that's what this team is. They are a team of great vibes. They seem to be a team now with a really great crop of young all-star talent. They're breaking records left and right. Good for them. Good for them. Good for the city that we and fans have something to wrap our arms around. The salad days of Cincinnati sports, we might be in the middle of them, or we might really be ramping up. I'm not an MLS guy, but all of my soccer friends tell me that they're doing well. And I also hear Mo and Lance touch on them a little bit when I'm driving around and catching a little bit of the broadcast. But I think that wraps it up for today, this Monday morning, recapping the Braves Reds weekend and sharing my thoughts. I might not be back tomorrow or the next day because I go into the office, but I'll be back again this week. I'm going to crank out at least 4 videos every single week. I need to do this every single day to get some reps. I miss doing stand-up. I miss doing performance stuff in Chicago. I miss being on stage. And now that I live in Cincinnati and I have a bunch of little kids at home and full-time jobs and other projects, this might be the only way I get reps. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your patience. Please like and subscribe. You don't even have to watch anything of it. Just like this and subscribe it. Consider it charity that you're doing for another middle-aged father out there who's just trying to get a little bit of a juice in his day-to-day life. So once again, my name is Michael Dennis. This is The Michael Dennis Show because it couldn't be titled anything else.